Hello, in this video I will give you my opinion on frigates that I think are the best for solo PvP in 2026. I will cover Tech 1 frigates, Navy frigates, and then everything else separately. Now firstly let's talk about what I mean by the best. In general, I look for three things from any frigate. First, the frigate should have a wide engagement profile. Basically, it means that I should be able to engage as many targets as possible when I undock a specific frigate. In the current meta, it means that the frigate should be able to fight Navy destroyers, ideally long-range Navy destroyers as well, not just short-range, close-range Navy destroyers. And generally, if we are talking about Tech 1 and Navy frigate especially, it means that you have to kite, and ideally you should have a tracking disruptor. The second criteria is that the frigate needs to be cheap. As you probably know from the yearbook, I am generally not a fan of investing too much in the feats, and I add blink only when it's absolutely necessary for the feat to work. But in general, I just use Tech 2, Tech 2 modules. And second, this frigate or feat should be slightly off meta, or at least it should offer a lot of flexibility in the fitting. I feel like in general, in frigate and destroyer PvP, muscle memory means a lot, and if you can throw your opponent a little bit off of what they expect, you will get a much higher results, much better results, because it's just very difficult to adapt on the fly because fights are so short. Let's start with Tech 1 frigates. This is the most recent engagement map. I updated it up to December 2025. And for Tech 1 frigates, I decided to go with Light Missile Breacher. Not really surprising, I guess. Breacher has been the top Tech 1 frigate for quite a few years. And as I mentioned, with Tech 1 frigate especially, if you want to have a wide engagement profile, you practically have to kite. And ideally, you want to kite with a tracking disruptor to add all the long-range destroyers to your engagement profile as well. And there are really only 3 ships that can kite with a tracking disruptor among Tech 1 frigates, and these are Slasher, Condor, and Breacher. Slasher is very weird and very difficult to fly. I don't really think this is a good choice. Condor is too predictable because everyone will expect Condor to kite with light missiles, and Breacher is not predictable. Most people will expect rocket condors. So it kind of ticks all the marks. It has a good engagement profile, it's off meta, and is cheap. Now let's look at the fit. Okay, so here is the feat. It is quite technical, not the usual cookie cutter PvP faction warfare feat. So you have triple missile launchers in high slots, micro warp drive orb disruptor obviously, MASB for tanking, and it aligns with a tanking bonus for Breacher. Tracking disruptor for mitigation against long-range destroyers in particular. PDS, you need this one for cap and for power grid, and when some speed and agility modules. You can use double nano as well, it's up to personal preference. Rigs, you also can kind of swap them around. You can drop tanking for more speed, or you can drop DPS for more tank, or you can drop DPS for more speed. Really up to you. Works either way. Drones, you typically want highest tanking drones, which are Caldari Navy Hornets, and they're not that expensive. But if you want, you can use Tech 2 rounds as well. It works. One thing to note is that your cap is pretty on the limit. If your skills for cap are not perfect, it may be lower than acceptable. Right now it's acceptable, I would say. And if it is the case, then you probably will need to dedicate one of the rigs for cap or for a cap rig to compensate. But if your character is very well skilled, then 2 minutes I think is fine. You can manage it by turning off and on your micro warp drive. Okay, now let's look at the Navy frigates. And here is the engagement map for Navy frigates. As usual, you have 4 most popular combat Navy frigates. I will not recommend any of them. I think they are overused. And I will also not recommend Vigil Fleet. This is, I think, objectively one of the top Navy frigates because it just counters the entire meta when it sits inside the complex. But I also want something that can fight out of position, and Vigil Fleet out of position is not that great. And I also want something that can fight destroyers. And Vigil Fleet against destroyers, it's doable, but I think there are better options. So I want to suggest one of where I think it's actually the least used ship in 2025, Prop Fleet. I tested these relatively new exploration frigates, and I think they are really amazing. They're really underused. And because of the slot layout and CPU and PG, you can actually make some pretty cool fits in them. So I think Prop Fleet, it kind of also ticks all the boxes. We will look at the fit next. I think it will throw most of your opponents off completely because they really will not be able to figure out what to expect from this ship, and I think that this ship is really good. And here is the fit. You see a lot of similarities to Light Missile Breacher actually. Same medium slots. For low slots you have enough CPU. This is a feature of these exploration frigates to feed ballistic control systems. Usually light missile frigates cannot really feed PCS at all, but these exploration frigates can. And thanks to this, you have very respectable DPS. 134 is just a little bit lower than Garmor or Light Missile Hawk. And I can tell you that Garmors and Light Missile Hawks kill destroyers quite quickly. So this is very respectable. For rigs, you need to use one rig for capacitor control because otherwise your cap is just too bad. Yeah, and everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Again, you can kind of play around with rigs a little bit. You can do something like double polycarbon instead of tanking, but it's entirely up to you. So, as I said, very unexpected. One of the least used frigates in faction warfare. People generally will have no idea what you are flying and what you are going to do. And this set I think is very competitive, especially in the current meta, with lots of Navy destroyers around. And finally we have advanced frigates. I put 3 classes on this engagement map. Assault frigates in yellow, pirate and special frigates in gray, and the combat interceptors in green. I will start by saying that I don't think pirate frigates offer good price and performance. Since you can't enter navy complexes in them nowadays when you are essentially competing with assault frigates, and assault frigates offer similar performance for a fraction of a cost. So logically, you just go with assault frigates. And same can be said about combat interceptors. Very cool ships, very off-meta, unique bonuses, but performance I feel like is not quite there to justify the price. So it's gonna be assault frigates, and among assault frigates, I want to go with Ishkor, in specifically with Kiting Ishkor. Nergal ticks most of the boxes, but it's too expensive. But Ishkor and Light Missile Hawk, you can just use basic Tick 2 stuff, and they work amazingly well. But I like Ishkor a bit more because it's a bit more flexible thanks to drones. So let's look at the fit. Okay, and this is the fit. Railgun Kiting Ishkor. Medium slots are quite familiar to you by now. Mako Warp Drive, Tracking Disruptor, Warp Disruptor. Since you're armor tank and not shield tanked, you can solve your capacity problems with a cap booster. Lows are ADC and ancillary rep. I found that you don't really need a dead space rep here. Ancillary rep is good enough. And nano and double polycarbons are necessary to bring speed and agility to acceptable levels. The default armor is uranium at 20 kilometers optimal. Drones, two packs. One is Tanky, your main pack, Caldera Heavy Hornets. The other is either Acolytes or Warriors, and you use them against ships with Tech 2 resist against kinetic. Overall, my experience with this feat was very positive. As you saw on the previous clip, Ishkur scores more than 80% win rate. I would say you can push it even higher if you know what you're doing. This ship essentially counters all destroyers because you have too much mitigation with Tracking Disruptor and signature on bonus to signature radius. And you also have Tech 2 resists against thermal and kinetic. So again, something like very popular rail Navy Catalyst, for example. And unlike ships with light missiles, you have very good application against frigates. So your engagement profile is essentially almost everything, I would say, in faction warfare, destroyer down. I even killed well-fitted Kikimaras in this one, again thanks to Tracking Disruptor. So this would be my recommendation among advanced frigates. Hope you found it useful, and I will see you in the next video about destroyers.